Back at it again. Yeah.
Ali,
Woo! Discipline
Ali, do you
equals
see
freedom.
who's with us right
Equals
now
freedom.
in the
Equals
third
freedom.
screen? Do you see?
Oh
Ladies
yeah.
and gentlemen, you know who we're talking to? We're talking to Akira the Don.
Akira. Akira.
Bro, Akira needs no.
Do you know who Akira the Don is?
If you don't know who Akira
Who's
the
that?
Don is, check his Wikipedia page, you motherfuckers, you inbred little twats. Check it out.
Never heard of the guy? Yeah, exactly.
No, I think
Wait.
Of
So
course.
is Akira the Don who you are, or is this a character you play? Let's get real. Like,
Yo, would you go to Superman and ask Superman, yo, Superman, are you Superman or is this a character you play? That would be disrespectful, right, to Superman, right? You wouldn't do some shit like
I don't
that.
mean to disrespect you,
damn,
man.
damn.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
That's not
come
how
on,
you
it's
would
a
kick
face-off.
off.
Ali
You know
versus
what I mean?
Akira. Come on, rap battle. Let's see.
Yo, we go that. That's the vibes already.
All
You know what I
right,
mean?
but the Don has to have come from somewhere, right? You weren't born Akira the Don, right? You weren't born with that luscious hair and the neck tattoos and stuff like that. Where did that all start?
Yeah, well, I guess there's some kind of like DNA thing that creates
see.
follicles, and then like the hair starts to grow. You know what I mean? And then I had an accident with a chemical plant. You know what I mean?
See?
And, that time I had this color, and suddenly I had a mullet. You know what I mean? And lo, I was the Don, and it was a beautiful thing. Like I was Akira for a while, and then I added the Don in a moment of extreme kind of like power,
And then epiphany.
whilst I was in a flow state in the middle of like a rap battle, and I declared myself the Don, you know? And
Oh my God.
then that stuck. Like,
And that's
it
how
was
it
one of them.
happened.
So while you were in
Yeah,
flow
it's very-
state, your flow generated this title.
Yeah, that was God.
Damn.
You know what I mean? I opened myself up to God, and that's what came through. That's what you do, right?
Yeah.
Your existence is this Byzantine conduit of all your experience, right?
Yeah.
And ideally, you turn yourself into some kind of like precision machine, you know, there's some elite level machine capable of doing a specific thing in the area of your passion and interest. And then you open yourself up to God and let God create through you. You know what I mean? And
Whoa.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what happened there.
And that's the flow state, right? That's what got you to that point. Can we talk about how do you enter the flow state? What is the flow
Easy.
state?
Well,
Yeah.
you know, that's that magical place where everything just flow. You know what I mean? That's that magical place where everything be flowing. You know what I mean? That's where God be hanging out. You know what I mean? That's where the muses be.
It's
You
basically
get to talk
is
to
it the
God?
lounge room, like before you enter, you know that.
Heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The
It's
afterlife.
dimensionally, it's there. It's the fifth dimension.
The fifth time.
I've ascertained, right? So like the third dimension is the one that we're occupying right now. I'm observing you in the second dimension, right?
That is true.
Right.
So
2D.
there's a 2D representation of what you are in front of me.
Yeah.
Right. And this around me is 3D. So the next way of measuring, so you measure things in like depth and height and width and what have you, right? And that gives you the 3. So for the next one, how else can we measure something? Well, in time, right? Time, you can grow an object, you can change something, move something. So the fourth dimension would be time, right? Then beyond that is everything that time exists within, right? So all that exists within time and then intersecting that would be the next direction. And that would be where ideas exist, right? That would be where potential exists. That's where like all the stuff you could possibly do with everything within time would be, right? So when you're in the flow state, that's when you have access to all that stuff, and that's when you're navigating that
Whoa.
stuff.
So
But the cool thing is you went.
That's 4D is time and 5D is
Yeah.
is that place in heaven. So that roller coaster ride where it's like 8D shit. Well, where does that take me? Like, what is that? Just me sitting like in God's lap, you know, like talking.
That
to
takes you for a ride. What that does, that takes you for a ride because that is bullshit.
Bullshit.
That is bullshit. I mean, you
Wow.
could keep like chopping things. You could keep like dividing things, and around 8, that's probably where you get to God.
Yeah.
Although you need to sit down and do the math on that. But certainly, like the fifth dimension, that's where ideas reside. That's imagination. That's creativity, and that's where you be when you get in the zone. Right. That's where you have access to.
Are you
And,
are you saying
some
that
people-
like the ideas are out there and you're just like when you're in that state that you just connect, you become like it's like swimming in a pool of ideas or something like that, and you're just grabbing the ideas and whatever you interact with,
Yeah, well, that's
the fifth dimension.
in an undisciplined fashion, you would be doing that. You'd be kind of accidentally flailing around and grabbing things. And the more trained you become, the more precision, the more precise you can be in what you're grabbing. You know what I mean? So some people, they be like popping up there accidentally, and one of the muses sees them as like, oh, that's that motherfucker. What should we give him? Let's break him off with, I don't know, they chuck something out of the waste paper basket, that motherfucker, right? And he goes back. But they keep seeing someone keep turning up. They'd be like, oh, shit, maybe we should crack out the good shit for this because this is a bad motherfucker. Look right here, you know what I mean? And then they crack out like the good shit. And then deeper into the situation, that motherfucker be like, what up, muses? I'm going over there because I know what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? And they go straight there. And yeah, that's what you'd be doing.
So what are the tools, bro? What are the tools? You got to share with us some of the tools to get into the flow state. To get to,
you've been there, right? And I feel it's different for different people.
Maybe.
But you will have been there at some point in your life. So you want to go, okay, how did I end up there? Right? This is a good thing to do in general. Be like, how did I end up there? Times in your life, shit was really fucked up. You go, how did I end up there? You can usually trace a sequence of events and thoughts and all sorts of stuff. For example, in my late teens, I ended up in a squat in London. Right, living with some junkies, and I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, oh yeah, I can trace that back to being in my in like 16 when I was at school, and I was really into Irvin Welsh's Train Spotting, and I used to bum off school, and I used to go to Safeway, which is like a what do you call it? A supermarket.
Yeah.
Right?
Speaking more Spanish than English nowadays.
Brain is confused. And I used to go sit in the toilets in there and read this book, and the book is written in phonetic Scottish. And so you have to read it. You have to be translating in your head because it's written like this, you doge cunt, and it's literally written in phonetic Scottish. So reading it properly, you will teach yourself a Scottish accent, right? And I had a job where I was going door to door selling gas, and I basically assumed that accent because I'd read that regional accents did better in sales, right? So I was wandering around the place pretending to be Scottish, selling gas to people door to door. And sometimes I'd encounter upon an actual Scottish person or couple, and then I'd have to keep it up in front of him, you know what I mean? And but anyway, so I'm reading Train Spotting, and I'm really deep into it, and I'm really interested in it, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm walking around speaking in Train Spotting voice, right? And then a couple of years later, I find myself living in Train Spotting. I find myself living in a squat. Somehow, randomly, I end up in a squat in London with characters from that book, with fucking punk type guys with mohawks who are going out every day with fucking bags, going to the boots and scooping things off the shelves to go and buy more smack. And I literally there with this guy Anto, and he's trying to get off smack just like Renton does in Train Spotting, and he locks himself in this room, and we have to stop him getting out the room. He's trying to kick the door down and all this type of shit. I literally thought and then sort of spoke myself into this situation, right? But, and you go, what's that got to do with the flow state? Well, and that's a very good question. The point being is, in your life,
thank you.
You can look.
We'll take the compliments.
And you can usually, if you think about it long enough, you'll work out how the fuck you got to where you got to, right? Yeah. So you've been in the flow state at some point in your life. What happened? How did you get there? When was the last time you were in the flow state?
Yeah, I'm in the flow state pretty often, so I'm pretty. For me, I was at a Jordan Peterson talk. I saw him a few months ago, and he said something that blew my mind. He was like, "The best way to get into the flow state is to treat life like a game, like you're playing with it, like all your relationships, like you're playing with it and stuff like that, and just to have fun. And in that area where you're relaxed but engaged and happy, that's where you can truly find." The flow state. So I always try to do that. And so any activity I do, like this podcast, flow state right now. When I'm working out, I'm in flow state. I'm not thinking about what's happening before, what's happening after. I'm just in it. I am one with the Taekwondo. You know what I mean?
So there's your key, right? It's the not thinking is the main thing. Yeah. So and I love it when Peterson and Watts here intersect, which they do so often. So often people are like, how do you align Peterson and Watts? They're like, no, they intersect dimensionally all the time. And there's one aspect. Watts was always talking about play and the importance of play and about how existence is fundamentally a dance and a play. And every aspect of matter works in that fashion. And the waves that interact and harmonize to create everything from a DNA level, like from the micro to the macro, that's how it works. So when you do that, that's how it works. You start harmonizing with infinity. You start harmonizing with God. So yes, if you want to get into a flow state, it's easiest to do it with something that you really enjoy. You can do it with anything, but it's easiest to do it with something you really enjoy. And, the first thing you need to be doing is removing friction. On a practical level, is removing friction. Say, for example, you really enjoy podcasting and you can get into a really deep flow state doing podcasting. What will pull you out of that? Like a technical failure or something, right?
Right, totally.
Some kind of fucking issue, right? So you want to be removing friction in every aspect of your life wherever you can. And if you have a specific thing you want to be getting into a flow state with, you want to make sure that there is zero distractions and friction in that specific activity. And a friction can be incompetence, not just technological, right? You're just not fucking good enough yet. So the better you get at a thing, the deeper into a flow state you're able to get if you keep practicing on that thing and keep improving yourself. And that Gundam suit thing we were talking about earlier, that vessel, that thing because what you're going to be doing is opening yourself up to God. And there's lots of different ways of sort of describing what I mean by God here, but I think you get the idea, right? It's that connection to that.
What about if flow state, the trigger for flow state for you is more of chaotic energy than relaxing?
The trigger for it?
Yeah. As in, like,
I see what you mean. Okay,
need to be around some sort of chaos.
Well, they're kind of the same thing on a micro and a macro level. So, like, intense chaos of, say, like a concert with like 1,000 people all mashed together, or rah, 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 or a dance, right? That could seem chaotic, although it's all focused on one thing, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
So it's a focusing that chaos. So it doesn't, you don't need to. You could have a flow state in a very still place with maybe a babbling brook and the odd parrot squawking or something, right? It's the focus on whatever you're doing, because in the focus on what it is, everything else ceases to exist. And then the deeper into that you can go, the more real it becomes, and the less, everything else is friction essentially that drops away. So it's about getting as deep into the moment as possible. And that applies to everything in life, right? The deeper into the moment you are, the better everything is, the more glittering everything is, the more powerful everything is, the more exciting, the more true. Like anxiety and sorrow, grief, depression, all of these things exist outside of the moment. Right? There are like you're sad about something that happened, or you're worrying about something that's going to happen. All of these things exist outside of this moment. So those things are the inverse of that. And the ideal is to exist in what some call flow state at all times. Right. And the more you do, the more, say you start doing it with an aspect of your life, it'll start filtering into other parts of your life, and it'll start affecting everything around you. It'll end up going into your family and your surroundings. It will end up going into your friends. It will end up going into your interactions. And you'll be like a gleaming ball of light in the world, infecting everything around you. And that's a nice thing to be,
Wow, Akira. I mean, you got to take your own voice and remix that and do a DJ, like a lo-fi, Meaningwave version of Akira the Don of your own.
Well, it's a good thing we recorded this, so you can
yes, exactly.
Take this clip, slap on some crazy beat, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
I first heard about your music like 4 to 5 years ago. When I was in college, and I first heard the Jordan Peterson music, and that was awesome. And for years I've been listening to it. And like most recently, like me and my workout buddies would go to the gym in the morning. We'd wake up at 5 a.m., get in the car, go to the gym, and just blast the Jocko Willink. Anything Jocko Willink you got. The discipline equals freedom. And it would get us in such the zone. Yeah, exactly. To the event. Yeah. You know what I mean? It really is like the best pre-workout ever. So
music is a conduit.
Music is
in
a
that
conduit.
fashion, as we were talking earlier, music is one way of thinking about music is it is a way of describing the indescribable. It's a conduit to the divine. It's a you know it's a way of experiencing something that cannot otherwise be experienced, that cannot be described, that can only be experienced in that manner. Is quite the thing, you know. And in that aspect, you can literally use it to just shortcut yourself into a certain state, to just transport yourself into a certain state. Similarly, you can use it as a time travel device.
Yes.
If you like listen to some shit. What was that I heard the other day? A Manic Street Preacher song came on that I hadn't heard on a shuffle playlist, and I hadn't heard it since I was 16, and I just left home, and I was in my first little bed sit, and I was instantly transported back to that place. I closed my eyes, I could look around and see the room I was in, and I could, like, little things that you shouldn't be able to remember, like the placement of patches on the wall, and like where the cereal was in the cupboard and stuff of that nature.
The image was just
because I didn't overuse. Yeah, I didn't overuse that album. Like the way I work with music is like I'll find a record, I'll really enjoy it, I'll listen to it quite a lot for a short burst of time, then I'll move on, I'll find something else. Yeah. And I find that when you do that, if you then put that record on years later, it will transport you back to the moment when you were first listening to it, and that time and that place, and you as well. And you can explore yourself as what you were at that point. Maybe there's an aspect of yourself that could be useful for something you're doing now. You know, I've done this specifically with music. I wanted to, when I was making that Marcus Aurelius album, I wanted it to have partly some of the vibe that I had when I was making "Oh What a Glorious Thing" and my first rap songs back in like 2003 when I was living on I think Kingsland Road. You know, so I put on the music I was listening to at that point, which was a couple of specific MF Doom records, and I was transported back to that place. And I closed my eyes and I looked around and I soaked in everything, and I went on I walked down the road that I used to live on, and I cycled up the hill that I used to cycle up, and I went to the charity shop I used to go to in my mind, you know, and then I came back here and I had that feeling and that power that I did at that point, and I put that into that record, you know.
And
so that shit works.
Wow, it's why is it that some specific songs can resonate with a lot of people and some, you know, less so, you know, it's more individual. I mean, you've been doing music for a long time. You've made many tracks. Some of them are like, you know, they really catch a popularity wave, and I hear them everywhere, you know, and me and my friends share them. And yeah, and it's not like, I mean, it seems like if it's the same process and you're just getting better and better and better, then that would mean that, you know, in some way you'd be able to replicate, you know, some kind of effect over and over. But it seems like there's something else there, more than just you, the artist, and you know, and the art.
Well, you can replicate an effect over and over. It's a weird thing to do because it seems like a waste of time. Although I kind of get what you mean on a certain level. If you're trying to, like, I'm going to make just incredibly popular songs, some people do that, you know, and you can do that. What I'm engaged in is not just doing that. There are other things to explore. And, you know, there are certain, the way that art works in a way is like art is a mirror, right? And you look at it and you see yourself and you see where you are, or you can see where you're falling short, or you can see what you're aspiring to. But one way of thinking about art is a mirror in that regard, right? And sometimes for a certain point in your life, you're going to need something to show you where you are and you're doing the right thing. But it's not going to make sense to you at any other point, right? It's only going to make sense to you at a certain point of your life when you've reached a certain level of understanding, or you have certain things going on around you. Some art just works for a moment in time, and it's not going to work for every single person. It's only going to work for a certain kind of person who's had a certain kind of experience. And it's really good to do that and to have that, you know, because it can get lonely otherwise, you know. And we all need that. Now, some mythology, the whole point of mythology, right? There's multiple points, but one of the main points is to encapsulate the knowledge of the society in something that can be understood by a child, right? So Pinocchio is very, very compressed and very, very deep, and has a whole load of stuff in it, which will then transmute this knowledge of the society, morality, all these concepts to a small child. And he can watch that and he can understand a whole load of shit that, like, it would take decades to actually explain to a person. But you know that from watching that, right? And a larger story is something, you know, think of the way, say, something like Star Wars is structured, in that you can watch that when you're a kid and it will make a certain kind of sense to you, and you'll associate or identify with a certain character. And at a later point in your life, you'll look at it again and you'll identify with a different character. And if you don't, it means you've not progressed. If you're still identifying with Luke Skywalker and in your 40s, like, and you're watching Star Wars, you have not fucking progressed, and something has gone horribly wrong in your life, right? And this is something we see in our society all over the place. We have a fucking swathe of motherfuckers who have not progressed past Luke Skywalker, right? And they really should be Obi-Wan Kenobi and the fuck out of stuff by this point.
Oh my
That's
god,
the problem, you know?
Just roasted all the Star Wars fans. Oh wow.
Akira,
Why is it that
wait,
then?
I have a question.
Yeah, go Side, go for it.
You mentioned squatting earlier, and first, I don't know why, but I've been curious about this for a bit. How does someone find a house that they can squat in? Like, what is the coordinate? What is the fucking planning that goes into that?
There was no planning for me. I was I was supposed to be staying with a girl that I'd met at a show, and this girl had said I could come stay with her, and I was not living in London at the time, right? So I turn up at London with my bag, and I turn up at this chick's door, and she's like, "Oh no, you can't stay." And she's got like some new boyfriend or something. I don't know what it was, right? So then I'm like, "Oh fuck, I'm in London. I have a small bag. I've moved here. What do I do?" So I sort of wandered around, and I was just wandering around, and I walked by Turnpike Lane Station, and there was this punk guy there, this big, tall, like green mohawk motherfucker that I'd manifested from reading fucking
Trainspotting, yeah, exactly.
And he just asked me a question, and I sort of put on my Scottish accent default. I was like, I can't even remember what I said. I have to listen to a record to take me back to that moment to remember exactly what I said. But I replied to him in my Scottish voice, and he said, he was Northern Irish, and he goes, "Oh, my girlfriend's Scottish. Which bit of Scotland you're from?" I can't do the Northern Irish. I need to read some Northern Irish written book. And I said, "Oh, I'm from Falkirk." And he's like, "That's where she's from." I was like, "Oh, fuck." He's like, "Oh, what you up to?" And we just got chatting, and he was like, "Oh, you know," I told him what happened. He was like, "Oh, come stay at ours." And he had a squat, basically. And what they did, they just found some council house that no one was in, and just bust the door down and lived in it, and just got a new lock.
So how long did you have to keep up with the Scottish accent in front of him?
The whole time I was there, it was like 3 months. It was like 3 months. It took 3 months till I got a job at like a PR company that was doing PR for books.
Yeah.
And I got a job as like an administrating photocopy boy at one of those places. And then that got me enough money to be able to get my own flat with a homie of mine who also wanted to move to London. You know, and when I moved out, it was real sad, you know, because the TV, I'd got a TV from, I guess, the place I was working or something. And I was taking the TV, and they really loved this TV. They really loved to like bang up some smack and lie down on the floor and nod off and watch the TV. And little Joe, who's the chick from Falkirk, was going, "No, don't take the telly." And I did, and I felt like such a fucking asshole afterwards. I should have just left him the fucking telly. Like, they'd given me so much. They gave me so much, and I took the fucking telly like an asshole. You know? I had to do a lot of like karmic debt reconstruction shit to like fix that. That was a terrible thing I did. You know, God bless her. But, yeah.
And how'd you get from the UK to LA, right? And that was your next step?
No,
Yeah.
fuck no. No,
Oh, no.
many steps.
Oh, yeah.
There was many steps along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But eventually, you know, that was the beginning of London, and I was in London for 13 years. And by the end of London, I had a wife and a son, you know? So I'd gone from you know, the squat to the top of a kebab shop, actually, was where me and my wife were living. And we actually got kicked out of that at just zero notice, but that was because that's what we wanted, I guess. But anyway.
Well, why?
Well,
What's the
because
story
we'd realized I'd been going to the US for various things over the years. And I'd noticed this pattern of when I was in the US, like, lots of opportunities were presented themselves, and life was much nicer than it was in the UK, where they had this thing called tall poppy syndrome, and they get pissed off if you start doing well, and like, You know what I mean? If you like dress, if you don't wear one of these deflated bubble wrap jackets or whatever the fuck they all wear, they'll literally wind down a window and like throw a brick at you out of the car window. You know what I mean? That literally happened to me once. I was on tour. I was like in fucking like Swindon or something. And like someone literally like rolled down a car window, threw a brick shouting, "Faggot!" And it didn't hit me, but it like grazed my backing singer. And she was very upset, poor girl. You know, but anyway, I found that but inversely, when I was in like Los Angeles, someone would pull up in a car and they'd wind down the window and go, "Hey, you're really cool. Do you want to come to a party?" You know, it's very different.
Yes, exactly.
And,
oh, wow.
And I had like, you know, various opportunities for like DJing and stuff of that nature. I was like, and I did a show in London. It was just incredibly catastrophic, just beautifully, poetically awful. And afterwards, I said to my wife, we really should just move to Los Angeles. What had happened was I read a Charles Bukowski short story, and he'd been to like some orgy, and like someone tried to suck his dick or something, and like, you know, some terrible things had happened, and he'd like stumbled home and like fallen into his bed, and then he'd woken up at noon and sort of looked around and sort of taken his shit and then gone back to bed. He goes back to bed and like pulls the sheet over his head and he says, "Life is as kind as you let it be." And I thought, fuck yes, that's true. That's so true. Why am I fucking around in London where it's all miserable and everyone's angry all the time? And I could just like literally just go to Los Angeles where it's sunny and everyone is like interested in what you're up to and there are opportunities. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we decided that, and then we got almost immediately after making that decision, we got kicked out of the flat. You know, so it was like, all right, shit, better really make this happen.
Yeah.
So got it cracking and made it happen.
Yeah, destiny. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of magical. And so, I mean, you ended up in LA. You've been DJing, right? Making music, making money, making music, and one night many years ago, you came up. You mixed Jordan Peterson and some lo-fi music, and the birth of Meaningwave, right? When did you like? Could you explain? I understand what Meaningwave is, kind of, but I would like to hear from you. Like, what is Meaningwave, and how did when did that happen? Obviously, the Jordan Peterson thing, but then when did it become more of a concrete idea in your head? Like, oh, this is something that's important. Yeah.
Well, the basics of it, which is essentially using speech as the vocals. Like, I'd been doing that for a long time, and that was inspired by a lot of the records I used to listen to when I was like 11. Around 91, 92, I was listening to a lot of Ice Cube. I was listening to Ice-T. I was listening to Manic Street Preachers. I was listening to Morrissey. I was listening to a lot of stuff. But the albums I really liked, one thing they had in common was like skits. Like sampled bits of old films or old interviews that would tie the whole thing together thematically. And I really liked that. And very early on, I thought, well, what if that was the whole song? And I realized relatively recently the first song I made was in a music lesson in school when we were very small, and people were doing things with instruments and stuff. And I was interested in tape recorders, and because that's what I had in the crib. I didn't have any instruments, but we had tape recorders, and I used to like taping things onto a tape and then cutting it and sellotaping it and making little loops like that and copying things from one tape to another. And I did a little sequence where I essentially made a sort of rough sort of production, and I recorded the TV that was talking about war breaking out in Eastern Europe over the top of that, and that was the song. So I'd always been doing that. And when I was making my first rap mixtapes as a rapper, sometimes I would just be like, well, what if this track didn't have me rapping on it and it was all skit? It was like all a recording. And one of them, for example, was Jack Kirby talking about how he created the Marvel and DC universes, how Galactus already existed to him, and things of that nature. And that was like a whole song. So my mixtapes would have whole songs that were vocal samples over music, incorporated with music and kind of chopped up rhythmically and stuff of that nature. So I was always doing that. And when I did that Peterson one, it was an exercise wherein I did 3 things in a week, and I wanted to see which one hit, because I'd heard James Altucher say you should quadruple down on what works. And I did one song sampling Jordan Peterson, and I did one song sampling Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and I did one song sampling a BBC radio comedy thing of a woman talking about the concept of hiraeth, and the Peterson one just really fucking smacked. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do a whole. What if I did a whole tape, not just a song? What if I did a whole 60-minute thing that was not singing and rapping, but that was this thing that I've been doing in smaller pieces? And that was really dope and really hit. And I found it was really cool for me because I found that I was able to really easily imbue the messages. You know, that was another thing I was up to at the time. Was I'd heard Scott Adams talking about affirmations and talking about writing down your intent or writing down things you wanted to learn or what have you, which is how I did my exams. For my exams, I just read my notes over ambient music and played it when I went to sleep. So I was already aware of music being a powerful delivery mechanism, but I wanted to go, okay, I want my life to be in a certain way, and certain things need to happen. I have a son now. I have a wife that I have to look after. I need to level up quite considerably. How can I get this knowledge that I need into me? And I realized, oh, what if I put that stuff, the stuff I want to learn and become, into the music? What if I reverse engineer what I want to become and work out the smartest people on earth who've worked these things out and turn those into songs? And in the process of making and listening to that, I will better imbue those ideas and that potentiality. So that's what I did, you know, and I found that it worked. And very quickly I found it worked, and also found that it worked for other people. So I went in on that and was refining that process over the course of the next, from like 2017 through 2018. In 2018, February of 2018, I decided to go all in and just be like, okay, what if I didn't just do this? What if I got in the zone? I realized I'd been in the zone when I made a couple of those records. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, what if I just got in the zone and stayed there and did not leave and just kept moving and kept creating? What could happen? You know, what could happen if I just got into that place, that magical place? What if I broke into the fifth dimension and just fucking stayed there and refused to leave and just kept hanging out in there, making as much as I could at as high a level as I could? I figured I'd developed the skills to be able to do that by that point, which I had in an intense period from 2014 to 2013 to 2017. 2013, yeah. I'd basically stopped rapping and just focused purely on instrumental music. Because at that point, I realized I wasn't smart enough to make the album I wanted to make. I'd made 2 albums, one about the perspective of an individual coming into the world, child, easy, I've been one of them. The next was about the point when you realize you're interfacing with something grander, which is the realization you have as you become a sort of young adult. And then the third one I wanted to make, I realized I wasn't smart enough to make that record yet. I hadn't had enough life experience. So I stopped rapping, just focused on the music. So by the time Meaningwave, I came up with that idea, I'd got real good at the music, you know? And I had this massive backlog of instrumentals and instrumental ideas that I'd built up. And Meaningwave was perfect to use all that stuff that I'd learned and all that music I'd built up, you know? So that's what I was doing. And then I did that whole zone inhabitation, hyperproductivity initiative, February 2018. And if you look at the catalog at that point, you can see I'll start basically dropping albums like every month. And the quality starts like rapidly ramping up. And these things really become more songs. You know, that really happened with that What's Wave Dreams record. The Any Dream You Wanted song. That was like, oh shit, this is a fucking record. This is like this is an actual real song record. Like, and I just kept working on that and fine-tuning that, and everything I made, I would learn something new and make sure that I learned something new. One thing about the zone thing, as we were talking about earlier, that we did not mention is it's necessary to have one foot in chaos and one foot in order to be in the zone. You will fall out of the zone if you're too competent and you're not doing anything dangerous. To be in the zone, I discovered this DJing. I really discovered this DJing because I'd see incredible DJs not creating transcendent experiences. It's like, how can you not create a transcendent experience? You're a brilliant DJ. And they'd be playing brilliant records, but the magic was not there. And it's like, oh, because they're just doing the same fucking thing. Once I was around these people enough, I'd see they were just hitting play on playlists, right? It's like you can't create that transcendent magic without having some kind of danger. In the context of a DJ, you need to be trying new records, playing things you've never played before, trying different combinations, so on and so forth,
Do you think you'd ever
which is what I always did.
Do you think you'd ever use like an opera singing sample?
Would I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have done.
Oh, good. I haven't heard that song then. Okay.
I think there's one on one of the Jocko songs. Like, yeah, I'll be using shit like that all the time.
Oh wow.
But yeah, anyway,
you've been doing it since you described 2018 is when you got into that hyper focus mode, right? And that's
February 2018. I said, yeah, I'm doing hyper productive. I'm going to get in the zone. I'm not going to leave. I'm going to keep fucking moving. I'm going to see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
And that was 5 years ago.
This thing are.
That's like 5 years ago, right?
Still in the zone?
Yeah. And this whole thing, you're still in the zone. Yeah, but exactly. I'm just imagining what would it be like 5 years from now. You know what I mean? It just feels like this is just the beginning of an inkling of just what Meaningwave is. I mean, and what I love about your music is that like there's a lot of obviously there's so much music out there and so much beautiful music of all kinds of genres, but a lot of the mainstream music is let's say about whatever drugs and sex, whatever, for example. But your music really resonates. Drugs, sex, drugs. Yeah, exactly. Swag. But
and that's dope. That's an important part of life.
You do. Yeah, obviously, it's an important part of life. But it's like
but it's like there is more to life. You know what I mean? There are many rooms in the mansion. It says in the Bible. You know what I mean? But it seems that we only seem to be looking through the keyhole of one of these fucking rooms, and there's so many rooms in the mansion. You know what I mean? And like I was saying earlier as well, specific to the point of life you're at. So yeah, if you're like some horny little motherfucker, right, and that's your experience, then Lil Pump speaks to you. You know what I mean? Lil Pump is speaking to your soul. That makes sense. But that's not everything. That's not the whole of life. There is so much more. And like I was saying, music is such a fucking powerful delivery mechanism for idea. So powerful. So unfathomably powerful. It's not something that's talked about, and it really should be. But there's obviously reasons for that. You know what I mean?
I want to say that people.
What do you mean reasons for that? Yeah, exactly. Why is it not being discussed as much? Like, imagine how powerful it is. The stuff that you do, and imagine you and a bunch of other people doing the Meaningwave stuff, coming together and doing a show and something like that. How transcendent that entire experience would be is unfathomable. Yeah,
and they don't want you having transcendent experiences. You know what I mean? They don't. They don't want you having access. They don't want having you access to such powerful stuff. You know what I mean?
Fuck them all, bro. Why are you restricting us from these experiences that we need? Why do we have to stay these horny little boys? Why do we have to stay as horny little boys watching fucking Lil Pump?
You know why? They want you. They want you to stay as a horny little boy. They want you. Who's that stupid motherfucker who keeps making videos about how happy he is he doesn't have kids?
Oh, sorry.
No, that fucking actor guy. He keeps making these videos about how happy he is that he doesn't have kids, and he always looks like he's about to cry. Fucking Seth Rogen. He's always Seth Rogen. He's always on this oh yeah, I'm so happy I don't have kids. My wife and I just lie around in bed smoking weed, watching cartoons. You fucking baby. And they want you like that because you're no threat to them, right? A fucking society of little babies lying around in bed, jerking off, watching cartoons and shit all their whole fucking life is no threat to nobody. You can't fucking overthrow a fucking despotic regime in that state. You know what I mean? Those dudes ain't doing shit. The most fucking terrifying thing to a despotic force is the actualized human individual. So, you know what I mean?
Akira.
That fucking warrior poet that Socrates spoke of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't want no warrior poets rampaging around the place, listening to Meaningwave, being epic, picking up fucking bench pressing buses and shit, right? They don't want you bench pressing buses. Yeah. Right, that's your birthright. It's your birthright to bench press a bus, right? And they've taken that shit from you. Do not put up with that, baby. You are meant for greater. Do not fuck. What's that great quote? Like, what a fucking tragedy for a man to grow old and not know of which his body is capable. You know what I mean? That's so true. And his mind. It's so sad. Oh my lord, fucking Seth Rogen is fucking jacking off watching cartoons bullshit.
No, no, yeah.
What kind of porn do you think he masturbates to?
I don't want to think about that. I don't want that I don't want to allow that. No. I told you earlier, you manifest shit. You gotta be careful. You be thinking about stuff, it'll come into your life. I was just reading a fucking book And that shit became my life. You got to be careful about what you reading. You got to be careful about what you're listening to. You got to be careful about what you imagining. Don't be imagining that.
No, I'm just reading.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
reading
exactly.
the future.
Don't even think about it.
You'll get put in the back of a bus and you'll end up on fucking Pornhub. Right? Fucking the object of the desires of that weird guy, that creepy. That's not even a guy by that point. That's like vaguely sentient soy. You don't want to be the object of the desire of vaguely sentient soy beings. You know what I mean?
So wait. I want to try to understand a few things. From my analysis, from what you were saying, is resisting temptation is the main thing for you to become more clear-minded, more open-minded, more understanding of what the fuck is going on and what you can actually do.
Yeah, I don't think I said that, but that's true.
No. This is my analysis.
That's what you said. Yeah, you're right.
Like, that's true. To summarize to my dumb brain, so I can understand shit. It's like
that's been if you ain't got power over yourself, how can you expect to have power over anything at all?
Yeah.
And anyway, it's yourself that does the creating, so you have to take full control of yourself. If you have not got control of yourself, like, you cannot expect anything other than the sort of miserable outcome of which we just spoke, being bundled into the back of a black van and forced to perform like a fucking wet, horny seal for creepy, childless weirdos. You know what I mean? So you have to take, it's the classic, if a man with no plan is no man. But if you do not have a plan, someone else is going to make a plan for you, right? The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, it will tell you, right? I think that was Jung. And or Nietzsche, one of those motherfuckers. And that's really, 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 really true. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're not like actively, for example, you can just think about this in your own life, right? If you ain't monitoring your thoughts, your head will just start going in all sorts of weird, crazy directions and flipping through weird movies you watched or weird nonsense, or like focusing on one thing and then building that up in some weird nightmare thing. If you're not actively monitoring what's going on in here at all times, it will do some weird fucking shit. And the problem is what goes on in here ends up being what goes on out there. Right. And there's various reasons for that. But like, you what you're focusing on is what you start to see and what you start to interact with. And you will start bringing all sorts of creepy shit into your life if you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to be fully fucking vigilant at all times. If you are not like in control of your physical being, it will start to fucking revolt against you. You know what I mean? It will start to really like start taking revenge on your lack of care and attention and make things very, very difficult and unpleasant for you. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be in full control at all times. Like, if you are not actively in control of your being, something else will be. My grandma used to talk about spirits, you know what I mean? Why they called booze spirits. And she would say why they called it spirits is because when you got out of your head, what they call it, out of your head, something else would go in there and start fucking joyriding, right? So when you have them blackout drunk things, it's like, that ain't you, that's some demons joyriding around in your fucking Gundam suit of a body, right? Or fucking fat suit of a body, whatever you've done with it, right? Fucking, so like, if you're not fully, if you ain't fully controlling this thing, something else will. The second you allow a little space and leeway, it's like water. Right, it's like the way I'd be building a studio, right? And it's like any tiny hole, sound will get out. It's like water, right? And it's the same with you. Any tiny hole, the fucking demons will get in there and they'll run amok, right? So you got to be fucking vigilant unless you want to be full of fucking demons fucking running amok with you.
I don't.
Right?
I swear I don't.
Don't want any demons
I swear I don't.
inside me, bro. I don't want
Yeah,
any
exactly.
demons
Stay away.
me, anytime soon.
Yeah.
Or anything else.
So it seems like you've really... Everyone influences you, right? You're always getting influenced by something. It seems like you just curated it so that your influences are positive influences. Yeah, exactly, in your life.
Well, so you need to have an aim and reverse engineer that aim and be like, what will get me to that aim, right? And it's so in a basic level, you go, okay, I don't want to be weak no more. I want to be strong. My aim is be strong. So you go, well, what do you have to do to be strong? Pick up heavy shit every day. Okay, and eat protein, right? So go, okay, every day I'm going to pick up something heavy and fucking eat a cow, right? And you do that through discipline, but it very quickly becomes habit. And then that habit will just carry you to your fucking aim, right? So you go aim, reverse engineer aim, discipline, create habit, boom. But you got to be vigilant because like new habits will form very, very quickly if you aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
So you got to be monitoring that shit at all times, right?
Okay,
And then
so-
the other thing is with regards to what we were talking about is like, it's because that's a very simplistic, but it's like, okay, what people do you need around you? What guidance do you need? Who do you need to be listening to? Like, what ideas do you need to be having in your life to get you where you want to go, to turn you into the thing that you want to be, to create the bad motherfucker that exists in potential, just like Michelangelo's David existed in that rock. That was a fucking rock, right? And he just teased out that beautiful thing, balls and all. You know what I mean? He teased out that beautiful thing that existed in the rock, and it was always there, right? That's what I'm saying when I'm talking about the fourth dimension, right?
Yeah.
When I'm talking about like all that stuff is in the fourth dimension. You get to choose how you rearrange it. The idea of the fourth dimensional thing and the fifth dimensional thing, my bad. When you're talking about like predetermined this, it's like God having a plan, all that type of stuff. So God's plan is like, you got a rock, David's in it. You get to choose if you tease it out or not. It's still in it. It always was and it always will be. God made it so. God said, David is in that rock. It's up to you. You have the free will, right, in this existence to bring that motherfucker out of the rock. And you do that with yourself. You do that with everything in your life. You have the free will to bring into being that which exists. If you step out of this dimension we're in, it's there, right?
It's yours.
So that's what you do. It's yours for the taking. So everything, every aspect, everything you could dream of is real. It exists, right? Outside of, if you step out of this dimension and look in, you could see it. It's there. The bad motherfucker you always wanted to be is there. Everything you've ever wished to hold in your hand is there. You just have to fucking take it.
Yeah, I feel it. It's building up, bro.
Whoa.
It's building up.
It's in my bones. Yeah, exactly.
I want to rip out my stomach and just like swallow it. I don't know. Do something.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, exactly. Wow.
I do want to share like something that a friend of
Saeed.
mine told me that. So I'm kind of paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what they said, but they were talking about how for someone to become, to achieve something that has to do with their potential, that they're accomplishing a new level or like reaching a new upgraded version of themselves. They have to experience maybe one of the worst experiences of their lives. They just have to go through something that will crush their soul, completely destroy them, and they build themselves up from the start, from there, from scratch. Because once you're coming back from that period in your life, you're coming back without the idea of like any of the temptations that you have previously had. You no longer have like this urge to just seek luxuries and seek these services or products, or basically following your basic temptations that you've been taught growing up as a child. And I want to see you kind of like, what's your perspective on that?
I would say there is some truth in that, although it doesn't always happen. I've seen people lose everything and then continue to fucking flail around like dummies and not learn the lessons. And you'll keep getting presented with the lesson until you learn it. That is how life works. And it is very true that the keys to our ultimate liberation are always contained in that which was created to enslave us.
Yeah.
And the keys to our greatest victories are always in our greatest trials. And when you go, and it's really something really cool to know, because if you're going through a bad time and things are really unpleasant, it's really cool to know that in the future you will look back upon that time as being the time that gave you what you needed to achieve your freedom and achieve that which you always wanted and desired. And it really is the case, if you're going through hell, keep going, because on the other side is greatness.
Do you mind me asking what was your greatest temptation that you got rid of?
Well, everything, every sin known to man at some point I had, I had to work through every single thing, and I continued to.
Yeah.
There is no nirvana. At that point, you cease to be. When I'm done, I'll die, and then it'll be on to the next venture. I'll put down the telescope and I'll continue on the voyage. You know what I mean? But in this realm, this is what we're always doing. This is you're constantly burning off the dead wood. And you're always doing it, and you'll get to a new state of awareness, and you'll look back on the old one and be like, what the fuck was that? And then you'll do the same thing again on the one that you think is really really cool. Be like, oh yeah, I'm fucking epic now. It's a constant. You have to constantly be dying and being reborn, like daily. And that's one of the messages of Christ. That's part of what you're learning there. That's part of what that is about, right? You have to constantly be dying and resurrecting yourself. You have to constantly be allowing you to die and be reborn. And if you get really fucking micro, that's how existence works. Everything is being born and reborn in like a fucking tiny fraction of a second at every moment, right? That's the fucking oscillation. That's the wave. That's what this all is. So you have to die, and you have to, be reborn constantly, and that's a good thing. And again, that goes back to what we were talking about, the purpose of myth. You need things you need art as a mirror to be able to look at it and be like, yeah, I've died. I've been dying enough. Oh shit! If you've not fucking died, if you're still hanging around in the same fucking state, if you have not, died and been reborn, and you can just see you're still a fucking baby, then you might need to do some shit, But here's the thing. People get it a bit confused, and I have done in my life. I did when I was very young. I was like, well, shit, it's very important. Everyone I like and everyone I'm interested in has gone through extreme suffering. I too must go through extreme suffering. And I manifested extreme suffering in my life. That was unnecessary. Not all suffering is necessary, right? Not all suffering is necessary. And as I said earlier, a lot of unnecessary suffering is a byproduct of existing outside the moment. Right. So that's one aspect. Is like, you do not fucking have to go off and like get arrested and get beaten up and get in all manner of trouble. So you've got a story to tell and be like a valuable artist. That's not necessary. Right. There's other fucking things that you can do. You don't have to create unnecessary suffering, unnecessary mayhem, unnecessary tragedy in the world in order to grow as a person, in order to create things of value, in order to tap into that thing that we were talking about earlier, which allows you to manifest into this world artistic creations of value, And that's the thing where people get fucked up. And the whole entertainment industry like feeds this myth. And I was really on that for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
tell me about it.
I was reading my Hunter S. Thompson and thinking, fuck, that's what I need to do. I'm fucking 16 years old running around acting like Hunter S. Thompson. Like, it's fucking retarded. Like, unnecessary. You don't got to do that.
Wow. It's so funny because the Oscars were like, 2 days ago and stuff like that. And, it's like none of those stories we're talking about, like the epic myths, none of them are in the Oscars and any of those movies. I'm not sure if you follow up on any of that stuff, but I wanted to know.
I didn't watch that shit. I didn't hear about that shit. The only time I hear about shit like that is like when outrage accounts on Twitter post shit going, "Don't you see this awful thing?" It's the only time I hear about that kind of shit. Like, I didn't know fucking that like fake boy George looking ass found Sam Smith thing, whatever he is. I didn't know that motherfucker still existed until all these people start going, "Oh no,
Satan!"
Like these people who claim to be against this thing, they purport to be in opposition, and it is they that promote this stuff the most. It's they that put it into the world the most. It's like, you gotta be careful when you fucking with monsters, man, because like you become one of them motherfuckers. Like Nietzsche said that. That's exactly what he said in those exact words, right? And anyway, your question.
We're kind of running out of time, but I do want to ask you one my thing is what were the movies and soundtracks that really influenced you and that you love the most? I know you are a big fan of Studio Ghibli. I always see you reference them in your visuals, and but what else do you love the most?
Well, I mean, that's fucking write a list and just reel off a list.
Okay.
You could like,
yeah, exactly.
But it's interesting, right? So you go, okay, one of my favorite movies when I was little was True Romance. And at the end of True Romance, they go to Cancun.
They do.
With their son.
That's manifestation.
And that's exactly what I did. Right? That's exactly it. And I was like, oh, fuck. And when I did it, it wasn't deliberate. I didn't deliberately go, I was like, oh shit, I am literally now living in the end of that movie that I loved so much, So you got to be careful. Like, you got to be careful. You got to
in the zone, just like manifesting
Yeah,
your
right.
favorite movie into reality.
Like, yeah, I didn't expect that to become my life. I was walking around here the other day, like, how did I get here? Like, thinking about that, I was like, all right, I understand now how I ended up living in that squat. How the fuck did I get here? But then you're like, oh fuck, there was all those things, all those things that I loved and romanticized. Yeah, right. Like, so yeah, and like, so you become. That's what I was talking about, the Byzantine conduit, right?
Yeah.
Like the sum of your experiences and what you've loved and what have you, the movies you've watched, the records you've listened to, and all these things. And it's very, very important, like I said, to keep finding new things and keep in culture. It's maybe you like shit. It's difficult now. Everything's propaganda and horrible. There's still wonderful things you can find, right? And it was always the case that you had to put in effort to find good stuff. They weren't. I wasn't a kid, and they weren't just like putting the best shit on the magazines and on Top of the Pops or whatever. Like you had to go look for shit, right? Like you have a couple of people. You have Prince and Michael Jackson, who are just amazing, and like that was a wonderful thing. Imagine living in a world where Prince and Michael Jackson are wandering around. But there's always something like that. We were alive at the time of Norm Macdonald. Like we got to exist on Earth at the same time as the genius Norm Macdonald. Like what a fucking blessing, you know. Like if your eyes are open, you're paying attention, there are wonders everywhere. Right. And yeah, just be careful though, because like what you put in is what will come out. Right. So if you're just going to sit there and just fucking, for a long time, I just listened to fucking gangster rap and that became my life. Like all that stuff came into my life.
Yeah.
It did. It really fucking did. Like you got to be careful. You know? You got to have balance. There's got to be balance in the force, you know.
But are you going to answer my question? Yeah, exactly.
What was the question?
Asking,
like, what
movies
stuff do you
and
like?
Soundtracks. Yeah, exactly. Just what are the things that really influenced you? I'm just saying, and no one's ever asked you. This is me asking you. I just want to know. The information we got to know.
People have asked. There's some movies that are good. Akira, that's a good movie. That was very influential on me.
Oh wow, I imagine. Right? Yeah, exactly.
It's a Wonderful Life. That's a great movie. Alien. For some reason, I really loved the work of Giga and Alien and like Blade Runner and those type joints. That whole thing. And you know, like 90s, 80s, 90s anime, like so much of it, whether it was Fist of the North Star, whether it was Gun and Battle Angel Alita, whether it was Urusei Yatsura or Bubblegum Crisis or Dominion Tank Police, or like I loved all that stuff so much. Like when I was like my son's age, 10, 11, I loved that world, and that still now is a big part of my aesthetic. And if I look around, I constantly have that on these televisions in my studio. Excuse me.
Excused.
You know, thanks. So I loved all that kind of stuff. I built a Plex server at Christmas, you know, and so it's basically like my own Netflix, and I just put all the stuff that I loved on it. I was annoyed because I couldn't. It was finding it difficult to get Only Fools and Horses. I wanted to stream that at Christmas, and so then I was like, I basically just built a library. I have all these fucking DVDs and shit in storage all over the world. It's like ridiculous, and you try and engage with the way they try and get you to engage with culture. Currently, they be like pushing crap on you. You go on some Netflix or like whatever, it's like 99% cancerous poison, you know? You can be shifting through this bullshit. So I built my own Netflix, you know? And everything on it is amazing. It's so dope. You just open that shit up and every fucking film is a classic. You know what I mean? It's fucking Silverado. It's fucking True Romance. It's fucking Pie. It's fucking whatever the fuck, right? It's just bangers on bangers on bangers. Same with the TV shows. Same with the anime. I recommend people do that. That's what it's. You have so much power in the contemporary world to like shape your reality. Like you ain't got to sit there.
It's like Sims.
Yeah. You ain't got to sit there and put on Netflix and suffer that swill. You don't have to. There is no cosmic law that says you have to watch this bullshit that everyone else is watching because that's the bullshit that's out this week. Oh, you got to watch The Last of Us because it's kind of like vaguely competent and other people are watching it. It is like poison designed to turn my daughter against me and have her chopping her tits off by the time she's 12. But like everyone else is watching it, so I should. Oh yeah, well I'll watch this one. It's got a cowboy in it, and like I like cow. Fuck off. Don't have to. So there's so much incredible stuff been created, right? That we have access to. You ain't fucking watched all the Alfred Hitchcock movies yet. Fucking build your own fucking Netflix. You can build your own fucking YouTube. Like you can. I mean, you can more on YouTube. You can sit there and just put a whole load of dope shit on a watch list and just engage with that, 100%. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
that shit. Take control of what's coming into your fucking skull, you retard.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. And yeah, I would love to see maybe one of your songs in a movie one day. That would be epic. I don't know how that can manifest, but
It already
it would be
happened.
beautiful.
So I did that early. That's why I get to be here. One
I
of my
see.
very first songs, "Oh What a Glorious Thing," was in a movie called My Super Ex-Girlfriend with Uma Thurman and Eddie Izzard, an early grown-up superhero film.
Oh, wow.
And it was that, being in that allowed me to escape my record deal with Interscope at the time. I took the money I got from being in that movie to buy back my record and my capacity
Wow.
to exist as an artist. And I was
Freedom.
able to build my own little baby studio
Yeah.
and make my own music and release my own stuff off the back of that, basically, you know.
But to see like Meaningwave in
Yeah. I
films,
agree.
that's next level stuff. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, knock on wood one day. All right, I'm out of
Well,
questions.
it's more than that. It's more than that. We're moving into a world, we're moving beyond movies. The things that our children are going to create, the art form that is being developed currently by children unconsciously, that will movies didn't replace books, right? But they superseded in a way. There is a new art form being created that's in which we will all be a part of telling the story. And Meaningwave will be a big part of that, certainly. You know, and I'm very excited for that. But that's a whole other
Amazing
fucking thing.
That's I'm out of questions. Saeed, I'll leave it to you. Last question.
No, I think that was a great way to end it. Meaningwave is the future. Guys, this has been A2 the show with Akira the Don. Meaningwave is the future. Riverside FM is the future. A2 the show is the future. We are all the future.
A2 the show's the future.
Create your own reality. Escape your temptations. Don't be idiots, you know. And yeah, bye-bye.
Discipline equals freedom. See you later. We're out.